I just want to be that prospect that everyone's like, he's coming, he's on his way. I knew to unlock my full potential, I could never coach and fight. The true test kicks in of, are you going to be able to do it?
It would seem to me like a good way to kind of, I guess, get in the slipstream would be to dip your toe back into the influencer side of things.
Bullying. It's bullying for me to go and fight over there.
Do you think that's what Tommy Fury's done?
I have to go over to that side. That's the only choice you got left, because I'm going to shut your career down before you even get to the titles of this division. I'm just Viddal.
Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Boxing with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, we are back for another episode of One-on-One with a man who really needs no introduction. Boxer, YouTuber, rapper, viral sensation, the one and only, the realest man in boxing, Viddal Riley. Viddal, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for heading down to ID Studios for the second day in a row.
Yeah, man, the people love me this week, so I'm just making a few appearances, and of course, if you shout me, I'll try and make it happen.
It's always a pleasure to see you. You're getting out there a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah.
With a stoppage win over Anis Taj. Congratulations, first and foremost.
Man. Thank you.
What did you think to it? How did you feel?
I felt great, man. I knew I was going to put in a performance of that nature. I didn't know what round it would end. You know, I said in the build-up, I'm not putting a round on it, but I just knew I was going to hit him more than I hit him the first time, and I knew he wouldn't expect my aggression and combination punches. He was expecting more of a mover, someone that he can break down over time and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, we'll see. I couldn't wait for the bell to go just to shock him and surprise him. And the look on an opponent's face when they don't know what to do or they're shocked at what you're doing is the best feeling, because you just keep doing it, you know. And I'm just happy that the finish was explosive. I got hit with a good shot as well, you know, under the lights. We've all been hit hard in sparring, but taking a shot under the lights, keeping my composure and getting the finish the same round, I feel like that's probably the highlight of it, along with the body punching.
Andy Clark, who of course commentated on the fight, he's doing a thing at the minute. He's doing like a book, or he's doing some research on what it's like to get hit, or what it's like to get buzzed or hit by a big shot.
Yeah.
Not saying that you hurt or about to be knocked out or anything like that, but what's it like, particularly for your audience as well, or like some of your audience? I think like the notion of being hit is quite different than the actual reality.
Yeah. I think I'm very. It's good that you asked me that as well, because I'm very open to talk about taking a hit or being hurt. I mean, it's boxing, and I think when I watch a lot of the legends, they were all very honest with each other. They was a lot more honourable, you know. I think that today, if a fighter gets rocked, they're gonna play it down. Whereas you hear Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, the Hans, they'll be like, "Nah, he got me." But they're still legends. We still respect them. So to answer your question, when I didn't see the right hand, I had to watch it back to see it. I knew it was because of the side of my face that was throbbing, and it was like a bit fuzzy. So it was a little bit fuzzy on that. Only on that side though. It was like one side was crystal clear, one side's fuzzy. My head's throbbing a little bit. My legs were there, as we could see. I haven't had the legs go, but yeah, I felt a little fuzz in the head, and I had to just execute my discipline. Because we all have that macho side of us, in us that's like, you hit me, I'm going to get you back immediately. But we understand that's immature and that's not how you should tackle it. So I thought, no, I'm going to move. I'm going to make sure I'm actually good. Because I feel like in that position, you're always one punch away from the next sense shutting off or potentially getting knocked out. So it's about dealing with one thing at a time. But I knew he would throw that punch again, because obviously it's the shot that he caught me with. And I thought, the moment you do that, I'm tucking some underneath. And that's what I've done.
Well, yeah, you rode it out. I think I put out a tweet with words to the effect of, you know, you have a little storm to go through in the fourth round. And those are the boxes that you need to tick off when you're a prospect. If you don't hit those speed bumps, as it were, until you get to British title level or beyond, then the first time it happens, you're in with a guy who can really, you know, finish.
That's the thing. A lot of people don't go through that. You know, I think that's one of the number one questions. There's two questions when it comes to up and comers. Can he take a punch? Can he do the rounds? And I mean, they're both inevitable. You'll find out at some point. People get eager to sense and find someone's weakness, which I guess is the game. But I haven't answered the questions about the rounds yet, which is not my fault. I mean, if I'm getting them out, I'm getting them out. And I've shown everyone I can take a solid shot. So if anything, people should be more fearful, because it's not about just landing one and I'm done. I'm still there, and it's still a fight. In the same round, you could reach your demise.
Dad happy with the performance?
Oh, very happy. Very happy. I haven't seen him this happy in a while, but I think it's just because that performance fulfilled my potential and what he knows I'm capable of doing. So that level of performance is what he knows I can deliver and I can repeat. So for him to see it, especially in a rematch after all the build-up, and, Anees is great at promoting the fight. I have to give him his credit. Like, he's a good person to fight because he understands you need to promote, and I don't take anything personally. I don't think he takes anything that I was saying personally. But, yeah, and then it builds that needle, it builds that friction, and then when the win actually comes, you're like, good, done, finished, let's move on.
The last sort of just over a year or so, you boxed Wilberforce Shehepo.
Yeah.
About, was it February of last year?
It was
on the Khan Brook undercard.
Yeah, Khan Brook undercard.
So I'm kind of taking from there. I know that you boxed previously, and we had people at your fight in Dubai, and you obviously debuted in Vegas as well. But it seems to me it's starting to come together now, like the last 12 months or so. Is that, I mean, we'll go into it and some of the stuff that we've spoken about in the past. Is that being a bit more settled, kind of having a bit more of a structure, you maturing in the ring, out the ring? What's been the kind of the biggest difference, or do you feel the same as you did back then? It's just a case of activity?
I definitely feel like a different person. I definitely feel what you were saying about just being more settled into the routine, whether it be training, the training demands, just maturing and growing as a man as well, which I think is the number one thing. You can learn all the skills and you can go to the gym, you can hit the bag, you can do that, but it's all a mentality thing, and I think now I'm settled. I've got a good relationship with my team, my training team, branding team. Like, everything's piecing together. I can see how we're heading to a higher level, and the aim is just to keep improving, keep grinding.
Obviously, people who will be watching this will be familiar for your coaching exploits. You are now a retired coach.
Yeah, I'm a retired coach.
A retired coach, but of course you were KSI, JJ's trainer for a little while. Putting that to one side and being able to focus on yourself. Of course, you still do things outside the ring, you still have a lot going on, but how much of an impact has that had on your boxing career?
Oh, massive impact. I knew to unlock my full potential, I could never coach and fight. It's just it's too demanding. It requires a lot of time. Every time he needs to train, I need to be there, basically. So if he's training for a 8-round fight, a tough opponent, he needs to train X amount of days. And when am I supposed to train as well and dedicate myself to my craft? So I always knew that the coaching would have to come to an end. And I mean, I didn't set out to be a boxing coach anyway. It was an accident. Yeah. So when it was time to let it go, it was like, all right, this comes with a few things. You're not necessarily going to be able to lean on the creators and the influencers as much as before, because you're not going to be as close to them. So now the true test kicks in of, are you going to be able to do it? Can you stand by yourself? Will you get views by yourself? Will people care about you if you're not side by side with the people that expose me to the world? And it is tough. I got a good team as well, like production wise, who helped me out a lot. And yeah, I'm glad that it wasn't a thing where I was JJ's coach. The moment I stopped coaching him, just go back into obscurity. I've managed to use it and create a brand of it that I can stand by myself and say, yeah, this is me now.
As well as sort of the boxing side of things, which, I mean, you've boxed since you were a kid, and obviously it's in the family anyway, so you always have that in you. But kind of having a release, I guess, outside of boxing. I mean, we know fighters are generally mental, and some of their releases outside of the gym aren't the most constructive releases. Right. But you have your creative side, you have your music, you have your YouTube, you have, clothing and branding and things like that. How important is it to have those things so it's not just boxing 24/7 all the time?
I mean, I think it's the only way to do it. Boxing, but we know boxers are boring. We know this. Like, it's a known fact. Very dedicated individuals, very disciplined individuals, and they can be great fighters. But the day and age that we're in now, it's not enough to just be a good fighter. You know, it's really not. You need to be a good fighter and bring something else. You know, you're doing a podcast with a great fighter and he can't talk, it's just like, man, even you're sitting there like, I really rate this guy, but what am I gonna do with this? Do you know what I mean? And I think fighters need to, they are. I'm looking around, I'm seeing a lot more fighters with YouTube channels now, you know, uploading their own content, doing their own countdown shows and training vlogs and stuff. So, I mean, I'm not going to say they watched me to do it, but I would say that I was one of the first people that you would see, especially in the UK anyway, who gave the people that access and get them to connect with me as a person, not just a fighter. That's the number one thing. You know, people have to connect with you as a person first and then a fighter second, because you're always going to be who you are, but you're not always going to fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to speak to you about is we've spoken quite openly and honestly in the past about, you know, the fact that you've been in a very high profile position. You've been here, there and everywhere, and kind of, I guess for a period of your life, I think it's fair to say you were sort of playing catch up with everything, and how that may have affected your mental state and kind of how you approach things. I remember we did a podcast maybe 3 years ago, 3 years ago, where we discussed kind of mental health and how you were feeling. You were very open talking about seeing a therapist. How influential and how helpful was that in your career, and where are you now at the minute?
I think it was very helpful to me. Like, having a therapist is not one of those things that I think should be consistent. Me personally, I mean, everyone's different, but for me, it's like I need some leading questions. I need a few ideas, and then I'll use my own intelligence to branch off from there. I don't need to see it every week because I haven't got something to say every week. But I just need a few things where if I'm thinking in a certain strain that isn't how I want to, I can always go back to what I've learned, read on it and say, all right, cool, that's what I'm feeling right now, or that leads to this, so let's nip it in the bud. But a lot of it comes from isolation. It's like social media, I'm very active on socials, but how much I really take in on there is minimal. You know, I'm more the posting person, not the scrolling person. I think when you scroll, it's subconscious, as we know. Like, subconscious is more powerful than conscious. So if you're scrolling and you think you're still putting that in your mind, that's the same. So I try and activate my subconscious with, you know, stuff that's relevant to me or gonna help me. Not all the time, but most of the time, because I understand that it's not all conscious. You can't say, oh, I'm going to watch this show and I'm not going to take it in. Like, you will. You can't defeat that. So watch something that's going to help you, and it works the same way.
Is that something that you've had to change? Were you a scroller in the past? And so I can imagine you would be impossible not to be with how quickly things changed.
It was very difficult with the following that I have and how much people might mention me online. It was hard, I would say. I find it very easy now, but it was hard to not get involved in that. And I would tell myself, it doesn't really mean nothing, but it does. It does. That's why I've realized the only way is to block it. If you block it, then it can't affect you. If you watch it and tell yourself, nah, it didn't, then you now have to use the energy to tell yourself it didn't, which is unnecessary. So yeah.
How does kind of being successful and very well known in certainly the YouTube space, you're fair to say you're more well known in the YouTube space than you are currently in the boxing circles.
Yeah.
How does that affect your relationships with other people, whether it be friends, whether it be, you know, potential girlfriends or partners or anything like that? Yeah. Because you must have to be a lot more wary than
100%
than a normal person, so to speak.
I think good thing is that I've always been that way anyway. I'm very I've tried and think ahead, you know what I mean? I try and think a couple steps ahead. I'm not impulsive like that. I used to be, but especially when it comes to like dating and all these things and who you decide to talk to and stuff like that. Like, I've never been impulsive, I've never been excited like that. So I'll think and I evaluate, and I think my relationship with people, I'm just me. Do you know what I mean? I put it on you. That's on you. If you're being weird or you're acting a certain way because I got a following, that's on you. Like, I'm gonna be who I am. Don't expect anything more of me or anything less than of me because I got 600,000 followers or whatever it might be. I'm just like, it is me. I am this person. So, and I'm comfortable with that. I don't feel the need to play up to anyone. I don't feel the need to do extra for anyone. Like, I'm just Viddal.
How do you feel that kind of, I mean, influencer boxing and crossover boxing, I can never keep up. As YouTube boxing and influencer boxing, that's crossover boxing, quite a nice generic way of putting things in. But it's still in the space now. Like whether people, I mean, I think like we're probably cut from a similar cloth in a sense of, traditional boxing fans, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But, ignoring something doesn't make it go away, and it certainly hasn't gone away. But as a boxing industry, I guess, with everything on top of it, what do you make of kind of the way the land, it seems to me at the minute that we're in sort of a transitional phase, both in a stage of kind of boxing stars not necessarily being around, but also becoming in this more digital age, which I think boxing has been behind in recent years, behind other sports and other industries, certainly. But you're part of kind of the new wave that seem to be kind of trying to push boxing into a little bit more of a, I would say Gen Z and like a derogatory, but that sort of way.
Yeah, it's more Gen Z, Gen Pop, whatever you want to make it. Like, we want people to watch boxing, and boxing isn't the leading sport, I mean? It's not the sport that everyone goes to watch. And we got to find a way to make it more that. We have to try and make it more accessible, and people don't feel like they need to be a purist to watch it. And we want people to care about the undercards, I think that's the main thing, is we want people to connect with the fighters. If you connect with every fighter, then the show will be packed from the beginning.
Well, that's something that you see in influencer boxing. Like,
the show, as soon as the doors open, everyone's inside. Same with the UFC. Everyone's inside. Like, everyone's got a brand enough that we're there. Like, we're going. I think boxing, when we can activate that, we're going to really be in a golden era. The times when it's 3 fights from the main event and everyone's like, I'm at the bar, I ain't even there yet, I'm around the corner, I'm parking my car. Because you're only there for the main. When we can change that, then we're good. And I feel like I'm playing a part in changing that, because I haven't been a main event once yet. But that's with my deal with Sky anyway. But people are there. People are there to see an undercard fight, which I am in. So I feel like I am contributing right now to that, and hopefully as I make the main event level, there's fighters that are coming through after me that have personalities and have followings, and the crowd will be there for them as the undercard, but when I'm the main. But right now I'd say, me being the undercard, it feels like a main event because I can get everyone to treat it that way.
How do we get there? How do we get to that level? Because, I mean, you can't really say it. I can say what I want. It's all a bit stuffy, and there's still elements of boxing. I mentioned, like, it's still, I don't feel like boxing as an industry has necessarily evolved at the rate of other sports and kind of kept up with things. But how do we get there? How do we get people to pay more of an interest in people? We've got to get better
personalities in the game, ain't we? Everyone's boring. The majority are boring. I think, we got to change the personalities. People can't be scared to show their personality, man. Even if you look at someone like Ricky Hatton, for example, he will tell you, look, I'm going to the cafe right now, like, I'm gonna finish this breakfast. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to the football stadium, I'm watching my team. He gave you something, and that's the reason why I used him, is because that's in a day and age where socials wasn't that. He just done that through being himself and showing the people himself. Nas was being himself. You just personality, whether it's the ring, whether it's the interviews, whatever media outlets that those guys had to use at that time, they gave you a bit of them. You felt like you knew Nas, you felt like you knew Ricky. And I don't know when it happened, but fighters turned into these guys that are like,
so like footballers.
Like footballers as well. They show their personality a lot more, I think, now. I think they get the opportunity to, but because it's a bigger sport and they're just more famous people, like individuals, they get the opportunity and get offered to do more on more platforms and get a chance to show their personalities, like Grealish celebrating, and you know what I mean? It's just stuff that no one's going to remember in 2 weeks anyway, but then we will when we see you again, because like, oh yeah, remember that video of him? It's just something, you know, that the people need to connect with, other than that was a good cross in football terms, or he throws a good hook, he hits hard, you know, like, cool. I can't laugh at that. I'm not going to share that with my friends all the time. You know, someone hits hard every week. There's a new show. I'm going to send another fighter in when another show happens. But if you personally done something that I think's funny, or I can repeat and I can share, then you're always going to be relevant. And that's what the JJs of the world, you know, that's what they managed to do. Whether you're 40, whether you're 9, whether you're 21, he has a clip or has done something that ends up with all of us looking at it and sharing it, because we don't really share his fights. It's the clips around it and something else that he's doing that we share. Then we find out he's fighting. Then we go, oh, maybe we should tune in then, because we always see him, but now let's actually see him fight. It works in reverse, but the number one thing though, besides all that, is when you get in the ring, you do have to perform. No matter how much of a personality you have, no matter how much people want to come and watch you, you have to deliver. Everything else makes sense when you deliver in the ring. If you're a great personality, you don't deliver in the ring, it doesn't work. It will cancel itself out.
So when are we headlining? I spoke to you about this for a long time. I remember coming down to...
Asking the wrong guy, Rob.
I'll ask Ben Shalom after this. I remember coming down to York Hall, and I think it was for KSI Logan Paul 2 press conference. And we came down to come to speak to you first. And it's kind of similar to what we're talking about with the shows. I mean, it's similar but different, where I think the doors had opened at 6 and I'd come down to see you at 4:30 or something. I thought I'll get down there before it gets busy, and then I was thinking in front of all those people outside. There's queues of people around the corner, and like that, you don't get that many people at a York Hall show often, let alone turn up for a press conference 2 hours early. So we've seen from then, and of course you'd have known it anyway, the sort of the potential for you doing something like that. I mean, like, you could realistically have headlined back in February rather than boxing on the Brook Khan card. Yeah. But that must be such a sort of, in two ways really, so exciting and something to get to push towards, but also you don't want to go there too quickly. You have to kind of don't do it just because it's there. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there's nothing wrong with building more. You know, there's nothing wrong with building more. If people can see I have the capability to be a main event now, and I'm not, and I keep fighting and I keep building, it's just giving me more time to make that main event bigger. I do think our main event soon, because we're looking for some titles, and, you know, depending on depending on who's on the show, how big the show is. I do see it coming. It's not something that I'm like rushing towards. I'm not worried about being the main event like that. I'm just focused more on my progression and fighting the best I can and defeating people that, you know, most believe I can't win against. No matter what I'm doing, it's very consistent. Whereas before I was trying to be this for that, be this for that, be this for that. And then I realized it's going to be harder for people to connect to me. Richard, Billam, Lawrence, I don't consider them on my radar. I really don't. Already now, everyone can scream. You can mix it with those guys. What are you going to say when I'm 28, with the rounds, with the experience, with my domestic titles picked up, with my brand bigger than it is now? What will you say then? How do you feel like we've spoken about this in the past, about, you know, Richard Riakporhe, Lawrence Okolie, Chris Billam-Smith, these guys who are they're not massively far apart from you in terms of age, I guess. I mean, it's sort of
in terms of age, very big difference.
Yeah, exactly. But you've always stopped short of kind of screaming their name from the rooftops. I mean, Chris Billam-Smith, WBO cruiserweight champion, lost to a certain Viddal Riley in the ABAs. So you can't, you know, people could never say to you, oh, well, people will, because people do.
Yeah, people will.
But you would be forgiven for putting yourself in, I'm right behind, I'm chasing them, and I'm this, like you get with lots of fighters. But, you know, as you know, I keep my ear to the ground on a few things. I heard that you did very well in the build-up to Lawrence Okolie versus Chris Billam-Smith. I know you sparred with Lawrence Okolie on occasions in the past. Yeah. Do you feel the gap getting a bit closer now?
Like I'm definitely. I'd say I'm a world level fighter. Like I know I'm a world level fighter. Based on who's at world level and skill for skill and what I demonstrate and my versatility as well. I know I'm a world level fighter, but you can't pretend to have experience. You can't buy experience. You can't borrow experience. So I understand the only way to get it is to do it. And if I've been given the opportunity and been blessed to be a lot younger than these guys, and there's no shame in building more. You know, it's just because I know I'm world level and people can see I'm world level doesn't mean I should fight for their world title next. You know what I mean? If people think that already, then what you gonna think when I'm 28? That's how I think. I think if already now everyone can scream, you can mix it with those guys. What are you going to say when I'm 28 with the rounds, with the experience, with my domestic titles picked up, with my brand bigger than it is now? What will you say then if the excitement and the hype is already that, yeah, he could mix it at world level? It's scary to think about.
It certainly is. And it's one of the things that you've always been very kind of matter of fact about, and very kind of, and the word that I always come, you're very objective about where you are with your career. I don't think you allow every fight. Like, I won't ever believe a fighter says I don't have an ego. Every fight has an ego to some description. It's how you use it, how you don't allow it to kind of interfere with you know, making your decisions and stuff. But you've never kind of you've never crossed that line unnecessarily at the stage of your career.
No, I don't. I think it's pointless. Like I don't want to just say things for the sake of saying it. Richard, Billam, Lawrence, I don't consider them on my radar. I really don't. I think they're at world level. You know, whether Richard's been mandated, Lawrence and Billam rematching, like they're doing what they're doing. They're having their generation right now, where they're battling amongst each other, and I'm looking at English titles. So when I hear those names, I'm like, cool. Like, that's the top of the division. That has nothing to do with me. Who's the English champion? Who's gonna help me become English champion? That's how my brain is. Like, you can't be thinking over there. Like, you know. And then once I get the English, I'll think, all right, who's British? And then from British, it's like, what are we going intercontinental, international? Are we going European? Like, what are we doing? And then when it's time, whoever is there at that time, that's who I'll fight to become world champion. I try not to get too connected to an individual because anything can happen. You know what I mean? There is no point in me saying, yeah, Billam, yeah, Richard. Who knows what's going to happen to them the next morning? So then, what if the WBO title was on the line, but Chris doesn't have it? I'm like, no, I ain't fighting for it. No, I wouldn't do that. I'm going to fight whoever to get the belt. So I try not to get too caught up on individuals, more so what belts I want, what I want my journey to look like, how am I progressing. I try not to get caught up on the names.
Were you surprised with how Okolie, Billam-Smith went?
No. I could expect that fight. We always can expect that fight from Lawrence. You know, that's what Lawrence does. He spoils you, he hits you, he spoils you, he hits you. And it's just a question of, can you take the punches when he hits you? And once I saw Billam absorb a couple right hands and he was still there, I thought, ooh, we're in for a messy one now, because he's not switching him off. Billam was not going anywhere, so I knew it was going to be a messy fight. I think it's the most we've ever seen Lawrence penalized for holding and for doing the things that we know he does. And I think it was a lesson he needed. I don't think he suffered, well, he didn't before the other day, but he's never suffered the consequence of his fighting style. He's always found success with it, and he's won domestic titles and world titles doing the same thing. Why would he change it? Why would anyone expect him to change it? It's always got him out of trouble. But now it's like, okay, it didn't that day. I lost my world title. If that doesn't scream for a change, then nothing will. But I understand before why he didn't change, because it was a winning method. But now it's been unlocked. He's going to have to change it up, man. You just got to throw his hands. When he puts some punches together, he looks good. Like, the range he's got, the distance he can keep. He can put the punches together. I said it to him literally as he was walking to the post-fight press conference. I was like, bro. It's like, well, why, man? I was like, just punch, man. I literally said to him, just punch more. Like, I swear, just punch more. And then he's like, no. So I know Lawrence's character. He's going to want to make right what was wrong. And hopefully we just see him punch more, because when he punches, he's a good fighter.
So he had the second point taken. I think it was, I can't remember, it was the 7th or the 8th. It wasn't the best fight in the world to watch, I have to say. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, I can't risk getting... So he decided to let his hands go, started to throw shots.
And that's when we were like, cool, now... Anytime he was throwing punches, he was winning the fight, I believe. When he was focused on trying to clinch and trying to grab, that's when Billam was getting his opportunities, and points were being deducted and whatnot. But when it was at a punching range, a punching distance, he was landing. He was winning the fight. I know when he watches that back, he must be frustrated. I mean, we were all frustrated watching it, and we weren't the ones in there, and we weren't the ones losing our world title. So I'm sure it must aggravate him. I expect to see a better Lawrence in the rematch.
Outside of boxing, I mentioned earlier about music, about YouTube, about clothing line. I was surprised to not see you wearing a bit of your clothing line.
Yeah, not at the moment. You're
working on it in the background.
I'm working on it. That's another thing as well. I don't do too much at one time, because everything that I do needs to be done to a certain standard. If that standard can't be reached, then it has to wait. I'm not gonna.
Have you always been like that? Or?
No, I haven't always been like that. I've tried to do everything. If I can do it, I'll do it. But I think that's a young way of thinking. I think when you're young, it's like, oh, I can do it. Why not? I'm going to do it. Why wouldn't you do it? I can do it. But then when you start to realize or think about longevity and think about the branding of it and think about the consistency of it, you start to make the decision, let me hold off on that. I'll revisit that. I'll drop a little teaser there, but I ain't going to fully dive into it, because I know if I was to drop clothing now, I could have a brilliant first drop, but then the consistency for the designs and to continue the brand growing and it not be merch, for it to be a clothing brand, requires a lot more effort. And I want to shout out to Calix with No Two Ways with his trainers, and seeing how much he puts in to make it a brand that you won't even know is him, as opposed to, hey, click the link in the description, we got merch now, we got t-shirts out now. Like, I don't want my Living Sports brand to be that. I want it to be something that you're just gonna walk in Shoreditch and see it. No one cares if I box, no one cares. They know it's me, but it doesn't really matter. And then it should get to the point where people don't even know that it's mine, but I just like the t-shirt. And that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of marketing, it takes a lot of effort. So I'm focused on being English champion right now. I can't focus on people wearing my t-shirts in Shoreditch.
Outside of boxing, what gives you the most pleasure? What gives you the most stimulation, I suppose?
Spending time with family and music. Spending time with family and music, and eating. Those are the things that keep the realest happy. I think music is, I'm having fun with music because I'm finding a way to make it all one. Before, I used to feel like when I'm making music, I'm a musician. When I'm fighting, I'm a fighter. When I'm, when I'm doing a YouTube video, I'm a YouTuber. That's how I felt before. I tried to put them into these all little categories, but at the end of the day, I am one person. And I think now I'm embracing that. It allows my brand to intertwine a lot easier, because I understand what people expect of me. I understand what the majority view me as. So if I'm making music, I could make an excellent love song, but you just never see me online with a wife and kids and roses. So if I make the best love song, no one's gonna listen to it. It's just not the time. When later down the line you see me in a Family Man and everything, I bring out a love song, then it will work, because everyone's like, yeah, he does love someone, do you know what I mean? Like, so when you're attacking people on Sky and stuff, then you got to think, okay, so people think this of me, and then when they hear my music, they need to still think it is him, that is him. And then when they watch my YouTube channel, they should say that's him. So no matter what I'm doing, it's very consistent. Whereas before, I was trying to be this for that, be this for that, be this for that. And then I realized it's going to be harder for people to connect to me because the person who likes me being comedic on my YouTube channel doesn't like my love song, and they don't actually care about me knocking anyone out. But then now I'm like, okay, this person that watches me knock someone out hears in my music that it's that theme, yeah, he does that. And then when they watch the channel, they're like, yeah, that sounds like him. And it just makes it easier.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where you're not kind of travelling here because you need to go to Vegas because JJ's fighting here, and then you're going to go here, and you're going to fight in Dubai, and then maybe come home for a bit. Kind of like art imitates life, doesn't it? Like,
it does. Like, I felt like a nomad for a bit, you know, just everywhere and trying to do everything. And I don't regret it. I think if I wasn't in that mentality at that time, I wouldn't have built what I've built. And
you wouldn't have probably the clarity and the appreciation for what you have now.
Yeah, and I think if I shut myself off earlier, and maybe how I think now I thought back then, I might have lost a lot of opportunities. I might have missed out on a lot of things that still help me today. So I don't regret it. I'm just happy everything kicked in at the right time, and it hasn't held me back. I'm still elevating as a boxer, still elevating on socials, and people, more and more, the awareness of who I am, how I am professionally as a person is being pushed. So I'm happy with that.
First thing that you said when I said, things that your biggest passions was your family, not being 8 hours behind in Vegas or a few hours ahead in the Middle East, and just being able to pick up the phone on a normal time zone must be such a relief. But how much, I guess it's probably one of those instances, certainly for me, like where I kind of work a lot, travel a lot and stuff, and you don't really realise until you stop and you look around and you realise how much you miss and how much it really means to you. Is it something similar like that for you?
Yeah, I think I've just always grown up close to my family. I've got a lot of cousins the same age as me. Me and my dad are close. I'm close with my mum as well. She's not always in the camera, but I'm as tight with both my parents. Like, it's the same. My sister as well. So my family are why I do what I do. I always say that I feel like I've worked enough where I could live comfortably now. Like, I can live okay. I'm not the richest, not the poorest, but I'm good. Like, I can pay my rent. I can go on holiday. I can do the things that people go to work to be able to achieve. But I can't do it for my family. So that's where the motivation comes from. The motivation is for everyone to at least get to the level that I feel I'm at. And I think if I keep working hard, pushing on, then I can create the opportunities for my family to make where I am now be their base, or just, just improve everyone around me. I put that responsibility on myself from young. No one done it. No one in my family said, you're going to be the one that changes our lives. But I just thought, it seems like I'm the one with the talent that can do it. So, why not? If I can and I work hard enough, then I can change my family's lives. And that's a big thing, and even when I get a DM from a random person saying, I only started boxing because of you, I'm like, that is powerful. That's so powerful. I didn't care about boxing. You started boxing. Now I've been watching boxing ever since. I went to the gym the other day. I'm like, wow. Like, that means more. That is the most, because that influence is positive and it's long lasting. So when I get those messages, or I can do something for my mum, my dad, my sister, I'm like, yeah, this is why I do what I do. This is exactly why I do what I do, because I'm just giving back and trying to get everyone on the same level as me. And yeah, when I think if I didn't have that mentality, I wouldn't work as hard, because I'm actually okay myself, but I'm not selfish like that. So yeah, man, it's family is it's a big thing, very big thing for me.
But it would seem to me like a good way to kind of, I guess, get in the slipstream would be to dip your toe back into the influencer side of things.
Bullying. It's bullying for me to go and fight over there.
Do you think that's what Tommy Fury's done?
I have to go over to that side. That's the only choice you got left. Because I'm going to shut your career down before you even get to the titles of this division. Boxing is a hard way to get famous. I just want to be that prospect that everyone's like, he's coming. He's on his way.
Now, for you in your career, obviously, with people who always look at you and say, "Oh, well, he's a YouTuber, he's this, he's that," and I think you'd have been forgiven certainly the period of time. I don't know when it would be. About 3 years ago, when you were having the injuries, and you were going to do Tyson Jones, and you're off that, and then you were trying this and that, and it seemed like things weren't really falling for you. You're away from home. We spoke about earlier on, speaking to a therapist and feeling, anxious and things that were going on in your life at the time. Did you ever come close to thinking, do you know what, I might just focus on musician, I might just focus on this, or was boxing always going to be part of the conversation?
Boxing, especially when I was leaving Vegas, it was hard to picture where I was going. It was hard to picture the path. I had with me, if I can't see a path to something, the investment is going to lack, because I need to see where we are going. Do you know what I mean? I'm that person in the car, I'm the passenger, and I'm looking at the ways like I'm driving. I'm trying to see, there's traffic there, what's the ETA? You know what I mean? I need to know where we're going. And when I signed to Mayweather Promotions, I envisioned it. I said, all right, cool, I'm going to fight on these small casino shows. I'm going to build myself to the point where I get on the PBC shows, and I'm going to be a PBC fighter. That was like the view that I had. And then when that got cancelled, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's happening next. And then during that phase, and it was the pandemic as well, I'm recovering from an injury. I'm literally like, I don't know where we're going, but I'm going to just heal myself. At that point, I was thinking about healing myself. It wasn't really about I'm going to get back in the ring. It was just more so to carry my kids one day, I need the same back.
Yeah.
So let me fix this back first, and then we'll go from there. And then obviously I had the opportunity at Sky that popped up, and then that gave me the vision again, where I'm like, cool. So this is what I'm doing. This is how I envision it. Let's get to work. Let's do it.
What's the vision now?
The vision now is to be the most exciting prospect, and the most talked about, the most feared. I just want to be that prospect that everyone's like, he's coming. He's on his way to us, and we better work because he's a problem. That's my mentality right now. And ultimately, to be Sky Sports box office, Tottenham Stadium fights. And I got an idea, but I don't know if I want to, I'm going to share it because it's you. But I want to, when I'm having my world title fights, it's not going to be, I don't want it to be the traditional fight week. That's what I can say. I don't want it to be a traditional fight week. It's going to be a real festival.
Okay, interesting, because that's kind of what we alluded to earlier with boxing. I feel like, and this is not a dig at anybody in particular, but it's the same faces doing the same stuff week in, week out, and kind of like I always say to people from my role in the media, when they say about fight week, you sort of go, well, the workload's kind of the same. Like you do the same events on the same days and stuff like that. So hearing that you might want to freshen those things up.
I got a mad plan. It's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require me to be that guy, probably to the level that AJ, achieved when, he's knocking out Charles Martin and having the Povetkin fights, and just the stadium era of him at, being at his peak. I'll probably have to be there or a bit underneath that to achieve what I have in store. But fight week is going to be full of activities. That is what I intend. It's going to be full of activities for you, activities for kids, families. Like that week, there will be something involving everybody, as much as you will have the traditional press conference, weigh-in, etc. I want to have some things on the side where you don't even have to watch the fight on Saturday. But I've just done something in your area around you that you're happy to attend because it's on. And then when you go to that event and you have a good time, you're like, why don't I just watch it on Saturday? Might as well. I had a good time at the event on Tuesday. Might as well watch it on Saturday. So I've got some plans. I ain't going to say exactly what they are, but that is something that I've like, yes, that's going to change boxing.
I'm very interested to hear more. So maybe we'll talk after the cameras go on. It seems to me like, and you know, I'm not. It wasn't. You know, it's not the intention to speak about it necessarily for a massive stretch of time in here. But it would seem to me like a good way to kind of, I guess, get in the slipstream would be to dip your toe back into the influencer side of things and the influencer side of boxing, which has grown, you know, significantly since you kind of, not because you stepped away, obviously, but since you stepped away, it has become like its own little beast. And then
it's grown bigger,
your Tommy Furies and people like that, who, of course, you're speaking about at the minute. And that would seem to me to be like, okay, well, you want to do it, just go that. But you seem very kind of, you know, you've spoken about Tommy Fury, but you're not chasing him. You're not trying to get the fight.
No.
But it must, from the outside looking in, it must take that kind of that inner resolve and that inner strength to just be like, no, that's not what I want to do this way. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah and no, because it's bullying. It's bullying for me to go and fight over there. It's bullying. And I'm not a bully. So it doesn't take much because there's no one over there that makes me think that'll be a good fight. That would actually be a good fight. I just think I'm bullying you. I've decided to make a cop-out decision to bully. And because that's not me, it doesn't take much for me to say I'm doing this. Because this is the quality that I am. This is the level that I am. The traditional world, I'm good enough to make it. If I wasn't, then obviously that would be more enticing. But I look at the traditional boxing world and think this is where I belong. I'm one of the best here. So no way I can go and fight over there.
Do you think that's what Tommy Fury's done? Do you think he's kind of looked, do you think he's looked at professional boxing and gone, do you know what?
I mean, you look at...
And no disrespect to him, of course.
No, it's not. Listen, it's not... This is not everyone can be good at everything. Like, it just is what it is, man. Do you know what I mean? It's just, we need to just admit it sometimes. And he's not the best boxer. He was campaigning at light heavy. Now he's settled into this cruiserweight thing. But I mean, light heavy when he was traditional. I can't give him a chance against any of them guys. You can't put him in there with Ben Whittaker. You can't put him in there with Dan Aziz. You can't put him in there with Craig Richards. You can't put him in there with Buatsi. You can't put him in there with Shaq and Pitters. I mean, the list goes on. And in the cruiserweight division, could you ever see him fighting? This is why he's doomed. I am not Chamberlain. I'm not Lowell. I haven't been a champion. So it's like, if you say to him, can't picture him in there with Chamberlain, it's like, cool, at least Chamberlain, he's a champion, he's there or thereabouts. I am a prospect, just like him. I am the entry level to the traditional boxing for him. Is me. And unfortunately, I am the quality of the Chamberlains, the Lowells, so the entry level is difficult. So then you have to go over to that side. That's the only choice you got left. Because I'm going to shut your career down before you even get to the titles of this division. Someone who's going to fight like Ellis Zorro. You can't fight Ellis Zorro, Jordan Thompson,
Luke
Watkins, Chev. Where? What part of Tommy Fury do you see in any of these fights? People say they want to see me in those fights. So it's like, yeah, I am the lowest level he can really go up against if he's heading anywhere. And despite him being ranked higher than me in the world, I mean, yeah, he's doomed. He's between a rock and a hard place. So the crossover boxing scene being created is perfect for someone like Tommy Fury. Is perfect because obviously he done the Love Island anyway. He had a good social media following. Now people with even bigger social media followings want to fight you, and you're gonna get paid heavy to do it, and you are better than them. It is like the best opportunity ever that could fall into your lap, because you're better than these guys by a margin, but you're worse than me and all the other guys in the traditional world. So you literally have found the perfect bed to lay in, and I rate it. I do rate it, and I think credit to the world being able to create something like this. But the only problem that I had or have is obviously him being ranked. higher than me, crazy. And the fact that he's not admitting or is open to say, I am a crossover boxer now. He will still run around like he's a traditional boxer that's just trying to end YouTube boxing. And then what? You're not going to come back over here. We know you ain't coming back over here.
Come boxing 8 rounds.
That's what he said. I ain't going to box at 8 rounds and you'll call against Viddal. I'm like, I don't blame you, bro. I don't blame you. But don't act like you're coming back here. Just say that the money's there. I got JJ, I got Jake, I'll fight Logan. Then he'll probably get an ITV reality show, him, Molly, and Bambi or something. You know, just, which is cool. Do that, man. Do it. But just be honest with the people. Just don't try to play everyone. And definitely, he that's why I said the fight ain't going to happen. I know the fight won't happen with me and him. And I don't wake up thinking it will either. I'd be so shocked to wake up and get a call that Tommy says he actually wants to fight you. That will surprise me way more than the life I'm living right now.
Did you think he would beat Jake Paul?
Yeah. I thought he would beat Jake. I thought he would maybe win more convincingly. I mean, the fight didn't look like Jake shouldn't be in there. It looked fair, and it made Jake even wants a rematch because of how it was. And he did knock him down. It wasn't counted, but it was a jab. He knocked him down in the last round. And I mean, that goes to show he made the right decision. Stay away from us guys, because we'll put some damage on you. If Jake is pushing you, read the room as he has. And he said, oh, cool, I'm chilling. But just admit that you're chilling. That's all I'm saying. Just say that. I respect it way more than this facade of, yeah, I'm a real boxer and I'm just ending YouTube boxing. Like, who asked you to be the savior? No one asked you to be the savior. Do you know what I mean?
And in between that, it looks as though we're going to see Tommy Fury against your mate. Toughest fight to date, indeed. From my perspective, and I know you're very close with him, but also know that you do call things as you see it. From my perspective, that's a very hard fight.
He should lose. He should lose.
Yeah.
There's no way JJ should beat Tommy Fury. If Tommy Fury is what he says he is, this should be no problem. Everyone should be giving JJ the credit that he even wants to test himself to that level. But I don't look at the fight and think it's impossible for him to win either. Like, I think JJ can win the fight. It's Tommy. He's a bit. You can make it messy. That's what I believe. You can make the fight messy, like him and Pretty Boy Taylor. Remember, Pretty Boy Taylor. That's another crazy thing. Pretty Boy Taylor was fighting at 155 and went up to 185, 180 just to fight Tommy. And Tommy couldn't get him out of there. Do you know what I mean? Because he has that messy style and in the clinches and he's smothering, he's making it. You know what I mean? And JJ's got speed, is actually that size, does some awkward things, and Tommy's technique's not the best, so I could see how it could end up in a scuffle, a head clash, or cut might open on someone. You know what I mean? Elbow. Sorry, bro, for that. But, anything can happen. But I don't think Tommy's skillful enough to stop the awkwardness, the speed, the athleticism that JJ brings. Power as well. He does hit hard. So I don't know if Tommy's got the skill to cancel out what it takes to defeat the awkwards, the messy, the power, the athleticism. He barely done it with Jake, you know what I mean? And I would say JJ hits harder than Jake. I've never been hit by Jake. I've been hit by JJ. I can say that. But I think JJ is more athletic, more powerful, lighter on the feet, like in and out, herky, jerky. It's weird. And Tommy's not technically sound like that. So it could pose him some issues.
Where do you think kind of YouTube influencer crossover boxing is headed? Because, I don't know, I feel like there's been times over the last couple of years where it's looked as though, not looked as though it's sort of dying off, but it's had, I guess, forks in the road.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of, from my perspective, it's gone down the side of, you know, things being bigger and more promotions and more fights. And it's actually kind of snowballed more in the last few years. And I think that certainly me, as kind of a crusty old miserable traditional boxing fan, would have expected. Where do you think it goes? Because we've spoken in the past about like British boxing, like what happens to British boxing, like, it's probably less relevant now, but after Fury Joshua. And it's kind of like what happens after Influencer Boxing, after Jake Paul versus KSI. Does it have the, I mean, it looks as though it has more of an infrastructure now to keep it going, but still that would be a hit.
They haven't surpassed KSI versus Logan Paul 2 in that realm yet. That is still the biggest event to date. I don't care if there's a long-term deal with DAZN. I don't care how many companies have popped up since. Nothing has compared to that event. That event was the biggest, the best, and that is what they're chasing right now. They're chasing to do an event of that magnitude again. There's more consistency. As we know, the long-term deals are happening. But where's the talent coming from? This is the problem, right? The talent pool there's no structure to it. And what's going to end up happening is people are realizing when they fight on these shows, they're not getting famous overnight. And that is a killer, because if it was the case, you'd always have people coming back. But then when you've done a whole camp, got punched in your face in front of thousands of people, and then you're like, I only gained 2,000 followers. I only got views last week. A month after the fight, my views have dipped back to what they were before. Boxing is a hard way to get famous. Do you know what I mean? And if you're not getting famous, you're not going to keep going back to do it. If you're not getting paid heavily, you're not going to keep going back to do it. So where does the talent come from? How does this world sustain? Where's the sustainability? Because people are starting to realize that. So you're going to have to get smaller creators. You're going to have to get people who are really on 5K, 6K followers, 10K followers, who are just, that is the biggest thing they've done to date. Because if I am a big name, I demand a certain fee. I know what I'm bringing to the table. You tell me you can't match that fee, I ain't going to do it. No reason for me to do it. I ain't getting punched in the face. Do you know what I mean? And that is what I can see happening. And I'd like to see how they overcome that to keep the quality and the longevity of crossover boxing. And there's not a lot of people who are exclusive to certain companies. So you could fight Misfits here, and then you see the same guy fighting on another show another week. And as I said on George Grove's podcast, they're going to have to realize that the traditional boxing world is set up in this way for a reason. It has its benefits, right? It has its benefits. You can't shoot this podcast not knowing who your cameraman is, who you edited. From day to day, you're going to change. Every week, every pod, you're changing the editor, you're changing the cameraman, you're changing the venue. It's not going to work. You have a team. You know, ID Boxing have a team. You know who to call on when you want something done. It's the same reason promoters have us exclusive to them. I need to make a show, guys. Who's my roster? You're available? Cool. Now I can format a show. If I'm running around over there, running around over here, running around over there, what you doing? No, I'm fighting in Brazil, man. Got paid a mad bag for Brazil. Can't fight in your cool. Like, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And at the moment, that's what's happening in the crossover world, is there is too much freedom. It sounds bad, but it's true. There's too much freedom, so there's going to be a way where people have to become exclusive to certain promotions, and they're going to realize why traditional boxing is how it is and why the sport is still here based on certain infrastructures that we still complain about, because the downside is certain fights are not made when we want, etc., etc. But really, if everyone had free will, what would happen?
It'd just be anarchy, wouldn't it? Be chaos.
It'd be chaos. We'd see some scraps. We would. We'd see some fights that we always want to see. But again, there's no longevity in that. It would be a big fight, but killing it. Big fight, then the sport, that big fight, and it wouldn't elevate. because you constantly need to make that happen. So I want it to last, man. I want it to be a thing. I want it to be an alternative for those that can't do it in the traditional world. Because if you love the sport of boxing, I'm glad that the sport now has an option for you. You can't say, oh man, I can't be English champion, can't be British champion. Just gonna get a day job, man. I can't do this boxing thing no more. Like, at least you have somewhere or something you can do. There's an alternative. So I'm glad that it's there for that reason. But longevity wise, it's gonna take a lot of work, and people are gonna have to put their heads together to keep the structure, and especially when JJ and says I'm not fighting no more, and you got all these misfit shows, and you know you're never gonna see JJ on the show again. Who's the next star? Who's the next guy? Who brings the pay-per-view? It's a lot. I think it's they put a big responsibility on their shoulders, and all these companies that are involved in it, they've put a big responsibility on their shoulders. I'm not sure they thought about the longevity of it, but more so, if I make this company and I get Floyd to fight Deji, everyone's gonna watch my show. Yeah, but then what about 6 months time? What you got next? People are not thinking in that on that wavelength right now.
Yeah, it's sort of what kind of has made them successful in a very short space of time.
Yeah,
is what's actually going to bite you in the arse.
That's why it was cool before, because it was all one-off events. Joe Willer, KSI, one-off event. Put everything out, guys. Put everyone on this show. Anyone you know, put them on this show. We don't know if it's ever going to happen again. Then KSI fought Logan the first time. I knew there was a rematch. Obviously, there's a rematch clause in there, so we knew it was 2 that was going to happen. But still, it's only 2 shows. We got people for 2 shows. We got fighters. We got, and especially at that time, it was blowing up so big. There was no one that was going to say no to being on the show. People were fighting for free on those shows. There is no one wants to fight for free anymore. No one wants to fight for free anymore. Back then, you could get a whole undercard and a few people get paid, and they were just happy to be on the platform. Those days are over. Everyone wants to be compensated for their time, and they realize we're not necessarily gonna blow up of this. I got 1 week, 2 weeks max of a little traction, and then after that, they're gonna announce another show, another Misfit show, and I'm not on that show. So everyone now cares about who's on that show. So the only way to really develop a brand through crossover boxing right now, influencer boxing, is to fight all the time on these shows. And if you're not a fighter, I mean, why would you do that?
You need to almost need like an influencer journeyman.
Yeah,
you have them do. Like,
they're starting to develop. Like, there's a few of them coming through.
I don't follow it. Like, he's kind of like he's a
Who's it? Who did you say?
Pineda.
Pineda. Yeah,
he's like a journeyman in actual boxing, or like to a level.
Yeah, that he's in the actual boxing. He's a journeyman, but in that world, he's piecing guys up. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's actually piecing guys up, and I'm glad. Like, that is where the positive comes in from it, man. This guy, we know he'd be getting used and abused down in Mexico. He'd be getting used and abused. But then through this world, the crowd love him. Like, he's a fan favorite. When people see the mariachi and everyone's gassed, they're like, Pineda. I'm like, this guy is a journeyman.
Yeah.
But
he'd be getting battered.
He'd be getting battered in a small hall somewhere. Now he's getting paid well. He's got a presence. They've done a documentary. Like, he said himself, like, when I got the call, I was in a small town on my camel. Like, now you're fighting in Wembley, you're getting on multiple shows, people care about you. I see Marius Breed is in his corner, innit? He gets everywhere, he gets anywhere he can get.
I mean, he's desperate for a payday, isn't he, that guy?
But like, this would never have happened to Pineda. So then when you see that, you think this is the beautiful thing about this side of the game, is that people who would never get an opportunity through boxing can now be great through boxing.
Do you think you'd stay in boxing after you retire? Do you think in some sort of capacity?
So like punditry,
trainer, or maybe in a more senior role than that, where you could affect change on the sport, like in some sort of like working with a broadcaster or a streaming platform to kind of shape the next generation? Because I do feel like we touched on it a couple of times, where it's kind of the same voices putting the same sort of formulas together over the years.
I think I'd be great at that. I think I'd be very good at that. I think as a retired fighter, if you made me like the creative director of something, I think I could do a great job with it. But you need to let me do it. It has to be one of those things. Like, don't bring me in here to let me talk and I'm not seeing it happen. Like, I have to be in control of it. I have to say, get him and he's there. Like, that's the only way I'll do it. Otherwise, it becomes too stressful. At that point in my life, I'm not looking to battle with anybody. Because there's other things that I can do where I do run it and I don't need to watch my ideas get wasted or not executed. So, I could see myself obviously being a pundit and getting involved in a few things. I think I'll always be involved in the game. Maybe even open a crossover boxing gym. Who knows? Get everyone under one roof and build some fighters, because as I said, I don't know where these fighters are coming from. But it would be good if I had a gym where people fight of the quality of traditional, but it's just never their intention. They just want to do crossover. And it would make the crossover level rise, because people know anytime I fight one of these guys, they're serious. So there's a few things. I'll always be involved in boxing, but the fighting side of things, I'm trying to wrap that up as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a good thing though. I mean, and I guess it's probably what people have alluded to in the past with your career, where, and you've mentioned it before, it's not the easiest way to make a living, and when you have other things that you can do outside the ring, you
tempting.
It is tempting, and the last thing that anybody wants to see any fighter do, no matter whether they have things going on outside the ring or not, is to go on too long. And as well as I do, the vast majority of fighters do, because it's difficult to leave it alone. So having that sort of, it shows a different type of. I'm always like fascinated by your Eubank Juniors and people like that who don't need to box.
Yeah, same.
Never needed to box.
I don't have any kids currently, but when I do, I don't want them fighting, male or female or whatever. I don't care. I don't want them in the ring, because it's just unnecessary. Like, I did not get attacked all those years for you to come out and get attacked. Like, this is not part of the plan. There's other things you can do. And I've given you a platform to pick whatever you want, and you said you want to end up with black eyes. I'm like, why? Why did you do that? But yeah, boxing's one of them weird games. It's a weird sport. I don't have like any interest in becoming a legend or anything like that. Because ultimately it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, really. I know a lot of legends who will charge people for a selfie. You know what I mean? And when it all boils down to it, as great as you are, it's like, how are you gonna be in that position? What do you have to show for it? I'd rather have something to show for me being a boxer than be considered a legend. Do you know what I mean? If it happens, then great, but I'm really not focused on it. The main thing for me is, I've said from a child that I can be a world champion, and that's a personal goal that I'm holding against myself until it's achieved. But once I secure enough money financially that I can invest into other things and use my smarts elsewhere, I'll do it. I'll probably retire and piss everyone off. I can't lie. Everyone, what do you mean you're walking away now? I'm like, what do you mean? Why am I walking away? You haven't taken any of the bangs. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's how I look at the game of boxing. For someone that's been doing it since 6 years old, and just realizing how fickle the game is and how great fighters can be forgotten. How you can walk down the road right now and say, "Oh, have you heard of Winky Wright?" And everyone goes, "Winky who?" Winky Wright, I hope he has money, because he's a great fighter and should be remembered, but he isn't. So the least he can do is be able to live the life he wants. That's what I think about, and what makes me any different to a great fighter like that, or Mikhail Kessler, or so many great fighters that we just know we don't even think about until we say the name and we go, what, he was a good fighter. Yeah, he was a good fighter. But day to day, we don't care. So day to day, I hope those guys live a good life, because that is the aim of this game. That is the aim of boxing. Make a living, be a great fighter in the ring when you're competing, but make a living. And yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're probably there for our biannual I guess therapy session, catch up, or whatever we like to do. But I always look forward to them. You know, it's always a different perspective on this crazy old sport when speaking to you. So it's always a pleasure to have you, and thanks for coming down here. And you've been to other studios we've had in the past.
I wouldn't listen. I can't be that guy, Rob. I'm gonna get a WhatsApp from you. I see you've been active on everything and you didn't come onto my one. I don't want to get that message. So.
Well, you've always
made sure I came through, man. Always.
But no, it's very much appreciated. So thanks very much for stopping by today. We're going to do a couple of other little fun bits and pieces for people to look out for.
Okay.
But Viddal Riley, the realest man in boxing, thanks very much for stopping by here at One on One.
New music coming soon.
Go on, get the plugs out now. You can do everything.
New music coming out. My plan is to drop a project every time I fight, but it will only be 4 songs at a time. I understand I'm not a rapper, people. I'm not going to give you the full interludes and skits, okay? It's just going to be a 4-pack of hits like what I do in the ring. And it's going to be out soon. I'm actually going to studio after this, so hit the streaming platforms now, find what you need, and obviously my YouTube channel is Viddal. So go there, and a new video should be out in a couple of days.
There we go. All right, this will probably be out long after.
But then a new video will still be out in a couple of days. Yeah.
But Viddal Riley, thanks very much. Always a pleasure.
I appreciate you, man.
Thanks very much for stopping by. So that was it. One-on-one with Viddal Riley. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more here at One-on-One Boxing. But from me, Rob Tebbutt, from the realest man in boxing, Viddal Riley. Thanks for stopping by. The hottest prospect in female boxing, maybe even all of boxing, Caroline Dubois.
He said, you can't box, girls can't box. I was being pushed and encouraged by my dad and people around me. I really, really wanted to do it myself, and I think that was the big difference. When the Olympics came around, I think that was the moment that really hit it up for me and gave me a goal, gave me a destination, gave me ambition.
What was your experience like at GB?
It was really hard for me, and I probably didn't really enjoy it that much. You got a lot of skill and a lot of talent, but if you don't work hard, you're not going to be successful and you're not going to get far.